Okay, what is up, guys? This is Ben here at the Beniverse, and it is 12:37 a.m. and I have just finished the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett, the newest Star Wars show directed, produced by Robert Rodriguez, and I'm just going to get into this, and this is going to be a full breakdown of episode 1, what I liked and what I didn't like, and just some thoughts and ideas that I had overall. Let me just cap this off right now by saying this is a spoiler review. I am going to spoil the living crap out of this show. Let's just start off, and I'm just going to break it down scene by scene with my notes because it's 12:38. I'm not going to put any real comprehensive flow to this, so I'm just going to read my notes straight off. Let's just start with the opening, which right away you get Ludwig's score back from The Mandalorian, now in the Book of Boba Fett, and it just feels like a continuation of the Mandalorian vibe, but also that of Return of the Jedi. Ludwig is such a talented composer, and this time he has something that's a little bit more dark, grim, and intense with this score, where definitely at least in Mandalorian season 2 there was definitely a little bit more of a sci-fi element to this. This feels a little bit more noble. This carries a weight to it, just like this character of Boba Fett does. And like I said, holy crap, it just feels like where you left off with Jabba's throne in episode 8. It's the same aesthetic. It just feels like it picked up right in 1983 and it hasn't missed a day, and it just looks the same, and it's just a talent of Filoni, Favreau, Rodriguez, the whole team at Disney for able to just capture that magic once again. And oh my god, guys, we just get spoiled with riches right off the bat. And this is going to be where the question of nostalgia comes, and I'm 50-50 on it. But for the first half, it worked. And right off the bat, when you see Boba Fett, he's in this tank and he's recovering, you get these flashbacks. One of them of Kamino. How cool is it to see Kamino again, even if it looks like it's just from a still from episode 2. And you get to see an Attack of the Clones reference with young Boba Fett holding Jango Fett's helmet again. Such an important idea and moment in Boba Fett's life that I want to see them explore more of Jango's relationship with Boba. Right off the bat, there was something they did that I was not expecting the show to do, and they dive you straight into the Sarlacc Pit. I was blown away. I didn't know I wanted this until I saw it, and it was amazing. It is full on a David Lynch, John Carpenter horror vibe and aesthetic going on in there. It is creepy, it's gooey, it's dark, it's grimy, it's disgusting, and you get to see him break out of the pit. Like I said, I thought this would be on the side of you're giving me too much of something I didn't need, but I will admit, when I saw that Sarlacc Pit and Boba Fett in it and that Stormtrooper's helmet, oh my god, I lost my mind. That was so cool to see. And then we get back in, Boba Fett has now made it back out into the Tatooine desert, and we get these scenes with the Jawas and the Tusken Raiders, and this is the first time I really think in Tatooine you get to see the brutality of the desert. Not that it hasn't been there before, but you really just see how unforgiving this desert is. It has kind of that western vibe of just miles and miles of nothingness. And now, of course, this is where you get the title, Stranger in a Strange Land. Great name for a title. Great name to kick it off. And what I like about this is you get the vulnerability of Boba Fett. The makeup work is so well done that he literally looks like he's on the brink of death for all the scenes in the past. It is so scary and intimidating, and Tamara Morrison does so much with so little in this, in the sense that he has, for the first 12 minutes of this episode, he has exactly 3 words of dialogue, but his expressions and physical performance just shows off the power and weight of this character, and he just doesn't miss a beat, and it's so intimidating. And right away, you also get this feeling of brutality to this show. It feels like a Robert Rodriguez and his sensibilities coming into the Star Wars universe. Yet it doesn't feel out of place within the galaxy. It is brutal and feels in line with it, but keeps that same aesthetic and tone that I think you saw in Mandalorian, albeit definitely a lot more brutal. And then you get back to Jabba's palace, and we're back in the present, and he gets out of the tank that's been reviving him. I wonder if that's is it Botha tank from Empire Strikes Back, the one that revives Luke? It could be. They didn't exactly explain it, but I mean, it would make sense of it. And you have this scene with, again, Ludwig Göransson's music coming into place, where it's Boba Fett putting on the armor. And I don't know why this is one of my favorite scenes, but the scene is so awesome. It's probably due to Ludwig's music and just the power that you feel of Boba Fett, but he literally kind of feels like royalty. It feels like a knight suiting up for battle. There's such a weight to that armor that feels just powerful, and I just love this scene. And Tamara Morrison just commands the screen as the role of Boba Fett. This starts to be where the episode started to not fall apart for me, but definitely showed its weaknesses. And the first one is with the male Twi'lek, who just feels so out of place in this world. He just sounds like you or me. He sounds like an American. He sounds like he's of this world, and it just seemed so odd to have this character in that type of makeup sound like us. And I know they've had Twi'leks like in Mandalorian who speak English, but this one was just, he spoke such a specific way of dialogue that it just kind of took me out of the episode, and I, like I said, I just didn't appreciate this scene. But anyway, this leads to, of course, Boba Fett going back to Mos Eisley, about Tatooine, and it's really cool to be in Tatooine again and get that aesthetic. But it also starts raising the question of, is this show fan service for fan service, just to be like, oh, there's something you recognize, oh, there's another thing you recognize, or does there meaning to it? Now, him going to Mos Espa does feel deserved, and I will admit I love the next cameo. It's one of the ones where I'm like, oh, there he is. And that was Max Rebo. Getting to see Max Rebo in the band again, that's really cool. I love seeing Max Rebo. He's one of my favorite, just underrated characters in Star Wars, just for the look and the design. But again, it starts getting to this thing where now you've had a callback to Camino, now you've had Max Rebo, now you have a Mos Eisley, Tatooine, obviously, which, again, it's going to be set on Tatooine, so that's not really nostalgic beat. But again, you have the scene from Attack of the Clones, you have Tusken Raiders, you have, oh, this is how he escaped from the Sarlacc Pit. What is this show trying to be at this point is what I'm starting to wonder. And this is where I'm like, it's losing me a little bit, even if I'm still really liking it. But let's get back into this review. And what I was surprised so much about political this show feels, it's the inner workings of the crime syndicate. And I really was not expecting this, but it feels like this show is going to be kind of political in nature. I thought this would definitely take more of the kind of wild action that we see in episode 6 of Mandalorian, where Boba Fett comes back. But there's definitely a little bit more ground and nuance to this, which I appreciate. I think I'm going to like that pace, because I think that was my worry going into it. If it's all action, it might eventually start feeling stale. Giving it this crime syndicate and going into the political divings of Tatooine and the syndicate is going to be, I think, really interesting, and I liked where they're taking that so far. Then there's other scenes that are great. The scene where Boba and Fennec are jumped, you just get to see Boba use brute force, and the sequence is violent. You get to see Boba blow up a guy, and a Gamorrean guard slit a guy's throat. That's really awesome. How, as a Star Wars fan who loves Star Wars and loves Boba Fett, how could I not be satisfied at this scene? It's cool, and Tamara Morrison pulls off the action. And again, this is why you get a guy like Robert Rodriguez. Again, he knows how to direct action really well. And speaking of which, notice how Rodriguez in this next scene, the chase sequence, how he uses tracking shots. You get to see the action unfold in a way that shows the pace of it, and how talented Fennec is as an assassin to chase them down. There's not a ton of editing, so you can just get to see the stunt work on display. And then when it cuts to Fennec, you get the actress and you get to see the edits focus on her face to show kind of the control she is in the situation. It's really used to convey the emotion of Fennec in the scene and grounds the action, which is again another thing that I really liked. It's something that I think a lesser filmmaker would have just focused on the action for action's sake. This one, he focuses on the emotion behind the action. Last third act of the episode, where it cuts back to, because now Boba Fett's in the tank again and he's healing. This is where it cuts back to the past, and this past is where I'm starting to have the biggest issues with this episode. One, and this isn't an issue I had with it, was that supposed to be Luke Skywalker's hut? I couldn't tell. I don't think it was supposed to, but I mean, they were moisture farmers, and obviously with water playing the key that it does in the next scene, it could be. I ultimately didn't think it was, but it definitely, you're supposed to kind of get this callback feel to it for sure. The biggest issue I had with this is the last, I'd say it's about 3-4 minute sequence where this big 6-legged lizard thing comes out to attack Boba, and Boba has this huge fight with it. It looks so CGI and cartoonish. It literally looks so atrocious. It looked like something out of a Godzilla film of the 90s. And it just did not fit the vibe and tone of this episode. It was not intimidating at all. It just looked really dumb. It was poor creature design, and it was a poor idea to do this. And I just didn't like the sequence at all. And the whole sequence just felt cartoony and uninspired, even if it gets to show Boba Fett being the ultimate badass. And that's kind of where this episode ends, with him slaying this beast. That, again, it literally just looks like a guy in a giant lizard costume. It's not that bad in looks, but it definitely just doesn't fit tonally with the rest of the episode, or really even Star Wars. It just looked cheesy, and I not like the scene. If that's like the indication of the creature design, then I am a little worried about that. But ultimately, that was the biggest one. That and the Twi'lek, where I was just like, this, it took me so far out of the world. And that one, it really did. This one, that sequence really hurt this episode for me. Again, that's kind of my review of the episode, what I liked and what I didn't like. Now it's kind of speculation on where this goes. I think you're going to see the continuation of Boba Fett growing this empire in Tatooine and exploring some of the past trauma he has with the death of his father. What I don't want to see more of is him after he escapes the Sarlacc and making these deals with the Jawa and Tuskens. I think less is better in this situation, and I don't want this show to be half of the present and half of it cutting back to the past, which is what this episode's format was. Maybe one more episode, it's fine, but even that, it's starting to stretch it out. I was feeling it by the end, and I don't want any more of that, because it really slowed down the pace in the second half of this episode. I like what they're doing with Boba Fett, showing him to be more of a leader who rules by respect. What I am going to be curious is to see what they do with some of the supporting characters like Fennec, who doesn't seem to approve of Boba's maybe kinder ways. I wonder if there's going to be a power struggle at some point. And finally, what is the show in terms of nostalgia? In this episode, it's fine because you're setting it up in the introduction. Like I said, I think the Sarlacc Pit is great. Like I said, I enjoy the Max Rebo reveal for what it is. I liked it cutting back to Camino and Boba holding Jango Fett's helmet as the episode went on, and then it's just like, oh look, there's Tusken Raiders. Oh look, there's Jawas. Oh look, here's the band. Like I said, that Max Rebo one worked for me, but it's just like, is this going to be what this episode is? Just callback after callback after callback? If that's what it is, I'm a little nervous about this show. But ultimately, this episode worked more for me than it didn't, and I think it is a solid start. It is a much stronger first half than a second half, But ultimately, Tamara Morrison's presence as Boba Fett and his physical acting is so impressive, and I am excited to see him delve into this character. This one, it felt like the story reversed in the sense that we weren't moving forward. We were looking back at Boba Fett's past, and we know he's the ultimate badass. I don't need to look into his past to know that he is the most feared bounty hunter. So don't give me these scenes with him killing just random stupid monsters in the Tatooine deserts. Don't give me a ton of this scenes with the Jawas and the Tusken Raiders and him making allies with the Raiders and all that inner politics of the desert that way. I don't think I need it. Now again, they could do it next week. It could be amazing. I could be eating my words. Right now, this is my impression of it. I'm giving this, if I had to rate this on 5 stars, I'm probably going about 3, maybe 3.5. But yeah, there is definitely a lot of good in it, mixed with a little bit of things I am nervous about. But anyway, that's my review of Book of Boba Fett. And it's great to have Star Wars back again. I'm so excited to be back in this world, live action wise anyway. So thanks for listening to this review. It's late. It's 12:55, so I'm going to sign off. But thank you guys. Take care, and may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.